As Jay said, we're developing a new classic-inspired turn-based JRPG game called Seed of Nostalgia, and on Kickstarter for just about another day and a half.
So, James, how is that Kickstarter doing?
The Kickstarter is going crazy, absolutely bonkers. We launched with a minimum goal of $20,000, and we are. Last time I checked a few minutes ago, we were at about $346,000, and that is the
Wow.
craziest, most mind-blowing amount of love and support that it's just beyond my wildest expectations.
That is tremendous. Dude, wow. Did you ever even think that you would forget hitting that crazy amount? When you first started, was this the first Kickstarter you've done, first off?
Yeah, it's the first one I've done.
So when you started, were you like, oh no, am I going to be able to hit my goal? And to think that you hit this insane number, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so when we were doing preparation to launch the Kickstarter for several months beforehand, at that point it was mostly me and Mushra, the composer on the project. We were working together as a kind of as a two-man team while we were putting together the rest. And so we were just working and we had some decent expectations of like, yeah, I think, we'll hit our minimum goal, hopefully, but we're a new studio and, we're kind of emerging out as the new kind of underdogs here. So we're going to have a lot of work, to try to get the word out. And so we had pretty humble expectations, and a big part of like that preparation and our plan for the game was to make sure that it was scalable. So before we launched the Kickstarter, we basically had a plan to where if we only got, that 20,000 or whatever it was, that we'd scope the project accordingly, so that we could get it done. But we always had this kind of big master plan for the dream version of the game that we wanted to make. And once we had released like our official gameplay trailer about exactly 1 month before the campaign went live, and that video got like 180,000 views in the first week that we put it up, and that was basically the first point where we kind of, I mean, aside from just jumping around and screaming out of excitement, that's the first time when we felt like, okay, this might actually be something that a lot of people really want, maybe more than we had expected. And so from that point on, like the reception was great. We got quite a bit of followers, but even at the point when we hit the launch button on the campaign, I just didn't really know what to expect. I hoped for the best, had a plan for just in case things didn't work out, but basically day on day it's exceeded my expectations. It's humbled me beyond words, and just, I mean, it's so cool to me that so many people are just yearning for this kind of game and something that really hits on the notes that the classics in the genre gave us as we were all growing up and playing them, and even, people who are just finding them over the last few years. And it's heartwarming to see that there are so many JRPG fans and people that just really want something like this. So we're just ecstatic, super, super, super excited.
That is great. I really think that with a lot of the games that are coming out now, and you have some outliers that are tremendous, things like Clair Obscur, things like 100 Line, but a lot of the games are really, they don't have that kind of homegrown feel. It's all too corporate. And I think that a real big part of that kind of turns people away. So I think that when they see a game like what you're producing here, and it brings them back to things like Chrono Trigger and Suikoden, I think that is really something special. So obviously, I mean, you must have had great inspirations. What were some of your inspirations for the work that you put into this game?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing. Well, my first memory in life is being like a 3-year-old kid and staring at the side of the NES blocks that my dad just brought home. So like the first thing I can even remember being alive is being fascinated at like video game, box art. And I've loved video games basically every second of my life. But RPGs in particular was the first genre and the first kind of games that I played that made me absolutely enthralled and obsessed and addicted to video games in the best possible way. I remember, I would say the first big three games that absolutely changed my life would have been Final Fantasy IV, which is the first Final Fantasy game that I ever got to play, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound. These are also some of my favorite games of all time. But playing those Super Nintendo RPGs was such a weird experience, and I can remember the very first time that I booted up Final Fantasy IV, specifically. I didn't really understand what was going on when the game was starting. I was like, well, this is like a really long intro, and there's like this ship that's flying through the sky, and all these soldiers are on there, and this music is like a movie soundtrack being played on MIDI keyboards. And you get playing, and I'm like, okay, like it's the game is letting me like explore around and talk to people and interact with the story like on my own. And after several hours, when the story starts developing, these shocking character revelations are happening. I just, it's almost indescribable the feeling that I had of like true escape into a different world. It was like the total Narnia effect of popping a cartridge into a plastic box plugged into the TV, and all of a sudden I'm, controlling the most wild, crazy story. I'm completely lost in it. When I'm not playing the game, all I'm doing is thinking about the game. And so I'm
Yeah.
heavily inspired by those experiences, and Seed of Nostalgia is basically 100% inspired by not only those games, but the feeling that I had playing those games too. And for some examples, the world design is heavily inspired by the Mana series, one of my favorite series of all time, specifically Trials of Mana. I think that they did a masterful job at designing levels and worlds to make them all feel so unique and so living and vibrant. And even though in that game most of the maps are very small, sometimes only one screen size or multiples, but the way that they connected them and the way that they designed them with this real consistency, the world ends up feeling like this gigantic open world experience. So that's a huge inspiration on the game and the theme. Chrono Trigger is a big inspiration for pacing, character dynamics, and sort of like these moments of unexpected revelation and twists and turns, and the fact that it's a game that just has no filler. Basically, every moment of the game feels like its own special, self-contained kind of story that adds up to this greater thing. There's a lot of other inspirations. I'm a big fan of the Golden Sun series. I'm pretty heavily inspired with things like platforming, puzzle elements from that game. I think that they hit it really well there. I'm super inspired by the Lunar series, which has just had those remasters come out, which are just fantastic. And so cool to see so many people finding, the Lunar series for the first time. And those games were a huge inspiration for me with the characters and the stories and the way that the story is told there, through things like animated cutscenes where you really get like a grasp of the characters' personalities, and it helps you kind of flesh out your sort of mental image of the game, which adds to like a top-down experience, which has a lot of abstraction going on. So I'm super. I think that those are probably the main inspirations, game wise. But I'm also inspired. Like the project was also inspired by like some of the animated films from Studio Ghibli. Play a role in my inspirations for the project as well as just real life. Things that we all go through in life. The emotional roller coaster that is existing as a human being, and philosophy and the psychology of being. I think that in a nutshell, those are the main inspirations for the project.
That's incredible. And you could not have had more beautiful inspirations for sure. But I also think that your timing here is perfect. A couple of years ago, when we had the real HD 2D craze with things like Octopath Traveler, and now we have things like the Dragon Quest remasters and the HD 2D style. And I think that it's the perfect time for something like this because so many people are looking for things like those Lunar remasters, like the Suikoden remasters. I think you've literally struck gold here. I think that this market is basically unlimited. But one of the most important things to all of us, and I know we've all talked about it, is physical game collecting. And as people who are associated with premium games, premium edition is one of the biggest proponents and supporters of physical gaming. And I'm so glad that a project like this could link up with a company like Premium Edition. And I think it's a match made in heaven. So, could you tell me a little bit about how you found Premium Edition games and how you got to talking with the folks here?
Yeah, so Phil sent me an email kind of out of the blue when we were pretty early on in the campaign, and I I had already been bombarded with people saying, please bring a physical edition of the game. We need a physical edition of the game. You're gonna do so much better if you add this kind of thing. And it's something that, of course, as not just as a developer, but as like as a gamer myself, especially through the decades, physical editions are a dream for me. It's something that, like, 10-year-old me would be screaming if he knew that at one point a game that I made myself would come out in that way. And so I was already interested, and I had been trying, speaking to other game developers that I knew, asking like, hey, who did you work with? Did you have a good experience? Is there anything, like, who are the people I should be talking to? And I had been messaging with some of them, just trying, and a lot of those other people, it was either like, okay, this contract, it's just not going to work, or like, I don't think that their versions are going to be very good, or they weren't interested in working with a Kickstarter developer. And I read Phil's email, and I get a lot of cold emails constantly from people of all over. So I kind of have this thing where I open up an email and I read the first few lines, and if it sounds like it was copy and pasted, I usually just get out of it because I just don't really have the time. But Phil's impressed me right away. There was like, his personality was in the words, and so I was like, oh, this guy sounds, he sounds cool, and this looks great, and so okay, yeah, I'll just email him back, and we ended up hopping in a call, and I think it took about, I want to say, 26 seconds, and we were best friends. So I just his excitement about premium edition, and about physical game collecting, and about the preservation of video games as an art form and as a media, was not only impressive, but it was something that, like, I really aligned with. And so we talked for, I think, a couple hours, and about games that we loved, about stories about, of our gaming past. And he showed me some of the premium editions. As soon as I saw what y'all were making, I pretty much had made up my mind at that point, because not only were they the best looking physical special editions I've ever seen, they really were, like, they reminded me of, like, my old working designs copies of Lunar, which are my favorites of all time. I hadn't seen a company that was putting so much effort into making sure that this was truly something to be treasured and collected and valued. And that was just super impressive. But I just fell in love with the fact that Premium Edition's philosophy and mission was quality over quantity, and not cutting corners, and basically striving and doing extra work to ensure that when y'all press a game, that it is a complete version of that game. It's something to be treasured. It's not a disc you're going to throw in a console and it's going to tell you you got to download another 12 gigs of data. What if you don't have internet? So I just felt like the premium edition was a perfect alignment and partner for my studio, which shares almost the exact same philosophies and mindset when we're developing the game. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to rush a product out just because we want to make a profit sooner. To us, the game is not only an art for us, but it's our baby. It's something we want to take care of, and something that we don't want to we don't want to betray that integrity. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I just yeah, it's just a match made in heaven for sure.
Yeah, that's something I definitely love to hear. I love your thought process there about not rushing it out and making sure that you put out the best quality product you can. Because as a alternative publisher that does special, I don't want to say limited, but limited edition physical games, it's also a hugely important thing to us. Sometimes people might get frustrated with production delays, but we want to make sure that every release that we put out is at that same quality that you're talking about. We want people to compare them to things like Working Designs and those beautiful like Square Enix releases back in the day. I have put up quite a few unboxings on the channel for premium, showing off. We just did another one today for Lonesome Village, and I'm excited not only that we're going to be able to offer this incredible game, but we're going to be offering this incredible game with that same style and flair that Premium Edition is known for. So I think that's a great win for us. I think that's a great win for you, and I think it's a huge win for our customers that will be playing your incredible game. Before I get to a couple questions in the chat, I want to kind of flip that question around on Phil. So Phil, James is telling us about his interactions with you. What did you see in this game that made you want to reach out to James about working with him?
I just want to, because I don't think I showed this to James, but if you take a real look at that, the artwork on that pays homage to the Mana series.
Look at that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the tree. Yeah, Secret of Mana. But, so, I just happened to be on Twitter, X, and I saw the game. And the moment I heard Mishra's music, and I saw that pixel art, it was like everything just came rushing back to me. It's like I was transported back in time playing an RPG for the first time. Like it gave me that feeling I had when I experienced Final Fantasy VIII. As I've talked about Final Fantasy VIII before, whether you love it or no, because I know it changed some things and people didn't like certain things about it. But that opening cutscene for Final Fantasy VIII, that grandiose opera music, like it just, it is so beautiful. And then you step out of Blamma Garden for the first time, you see the open world, and you think, man, video games are going to be so huge, and that's that feeling, that same feeling I got when I saw this trailer. And I was thinking, you know what, this is probably a long shot. This game is so impressive. It's probably been snatched up by somebody else, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I mean, I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna reach out to this developer, and I'm gonna see what happens. And I am so glad that I did that. I'm so glad that I took that chance, because James and his team are so amazing, so talented. And this is what makes me so passionate and so happy in the community, because with the AAA stuff, it's so negative right now, and it just, I felt so lost when it comes to gaming and that. But then, when I see indie games, I see indie developers so passionate about what they're doing, that rejuvenates my love and passion and desire for gaming. It takes me back to where, it all began for me. It rekindles that fire. And I'm just so pumped to work with James. I'm so pumped to be a part of Premium and to be able to put out this game physically and do it justice, because this game deserves to have a true high quality physical release. And I'm excited. I mean, if I could push the fast forward button right now, we'd already have that physical in our hand.
And I think that in the current atmosphere in the game industry, we definitely need more games like this. And I also know from talking to a few people, and Phil, and of course James, I know that James is very involved with his community. I know that James has a very vibrant and active Discord community, and he has fans that he often communicates with and is close with. And I think that is something that's really special. And it's also something that's really special that you've maintained that even as this game grows larger and becomes more and more successful. So, real quick, before we go to chat for some questions, I really wanted to touch on that, James. How do you feel about the community that's rallied around you, and how have your interactions been with them?
Yeah, I think that if I could think of one sentence to describe kind of what I've learned through this process to other developers, it would be if you take care of your community will take care of you. And that is super, super true. And it's kind of been proven this entire month long that if you're involved with them at a level of like they can ping you on Discord and you can hop on and answer their questions right away, or you can just chat about what you love about JRPGs and do this kind of theory crafting and be just completely transparent with them. Be honest with the process. You don't have to act like some big studio where you're only sort of opening the door to them to let them in just a little bit, and then keeping everything guarded. If you involve them and you let them kind of have a voice in it and you listen to them and talk with them, they're going to pay you back on that in spades. I mean, I've just found that the community that's kind of been built up around the game is by far the biggest reason why we've had so much success. If if you can help them be excited and be excited with them about the game, then they're going to share it with their friends. They're going to hang out in your Discord and come up with ideas and talk about what they're excited about and give you feedback on things. They're going to stay involved in that process, and that feedback and hearing what they're excited about, or what things they think, like, oh, I don't really like that about other games in the genre, so I hope that's not there. Them giving you the chance to actually listen to those things is the biggest reward and boon that you could ever have as a game developer, because you're not going to get stuck in that sort of living under a rock, working on your game, keeping it held so tight to your chest that you end up, designing things for whatever you think is best at the moment. But to have a community where you can hear exactly what people are going to like, and how to do things better, because many of them have been playing games just as long as I have too, and the more perspective that you can get on that is just worth its weight in gold. And my community is so cool and so friendly and so kind to each other. They've really kept me going through this month. I'm notoriously a workaholic when it comes to creative projects that I like, and for me, I'm just completely happy to do it. But running a campaign like this was even more work and energy than I had planned originally, and they are the reason why I was able to just keep going, to keep welcoming every single new member that pops into the server. They just keep me so motivated and so excited to keep going that I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay them as much as like love that they've shown me, other than just giving them the best damn JRPG that I'm capable of. And I hope that'll be enough. But really, if you take the time and give your energy to take care of your community and listen to them and keep them involved and engaged and give them a reason to keep coming back, then they're going to pay you back in spades. It's really, I think, the biggest reason why we've had this level of success.
Let me say right now, Sony, Nintendo, Square Enix, Ubisoft, listen to what that man is saying. Listen, no one is listening to gamers. No one is listening to the people who are passionate and care about these games that you expect them to buy. This man's game is right now in the Kickstarter phase wildly successful and will only be more successful in the future. Not only because him and his team are extremely talented, but because of the stuff he is saying right now. And I see people lighting up the chat talking about how great his community is and that he's the best dev and how personable he is. Listen to them. Listen to them. All of you, game companies, developers, be James, please. With that being
Chat
said,
B James.
I want to go to the chat because we've got quite a few questions piling up, and we want to definitely be able to involve everyone. And then I know Phil has some questions, and then we're going to do, if you've ever watched the Cold Takes podcast, we're going to do a lightning round with James too, where we're going to find out about all his favorite JRPG stuff in a question format, like a 20 questions deal. It's going to be pretty fun. But the first question we have comes from Dan the Man. And he says, when was the first idea you had to do this project?
So the idea for at least the story of Seed of Nostalgia is years and years old. It's I want to say that it was probably also a byproduct of the pandemic era when I just had a lot of time on my hands, and I like the first sparks of that story. It's just one of those things where maybe I was watching something else, playing something else, and I had like this little idea, that we all do, where it's like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, this sort of alternate take on that kind of thing. And I just kind of in my free time, I would keep remembering the story idea, and I kind of just started fleshing it out in my mind. And things kind of clicked together in that story. It was a lot easier than previous times when I'd put together stories or had game ideas. But at the time, I was actually sort of working, behind the scenes, just making personal projects. I had another RPG that I had been working on, and more as a practice run to try and just like figure out how to do these things and how to make a game like this, and learning lots of things. But I didn't really have the motivation to take this story and turn it into a game at that time because it felt like the story was larger than my abilities, or more so larger than the amount of free time that I had at that time. I was working as a professional musician then, and so I was only home for a couple months out of the year. So I really didn't have much time. I mean, I would bring my laptop with me and I would be messing with little game dev things, in the backstage green rooms or whatever, and then I'd have to go, play music. And so there wasn't just a lot of time for me to tackle that kind of thing. But I want to say Seed of Nostalgia properly, so the project ignited about 2 years ago now, when I did start to have a bit more free time, and I started prototyping an RPG and just kind of messing around with very basic things like getting characters walking around and animating in new ways and sort of messing with some level art. But when I was doing that prototyping, it was just starting to feel really good. And I kept thinking about that big story idea that I had and just feeling like inching ever closer to feeling like, yeah, maybe I could actually do this. And when when I when I finally committed to it, I was like, well, I'll take that story and I'll cut it down massively and I'll just do like a short 10-hour game with that as like the world story, but I'm not going to get too, I'm not going to get it really intense into sort of the lore and the characters that I was thinking about. I was going to try and do a simpler one. So I started putting, doing some level design, making some assets, putting things together, messing around with the combat system a bit. And it was just feeling so good and so right. And when I saw, well, like the first time that I made the Attila sprite, the main character of the game, and got him in the world and running around, it just felt like this fire just sort of lit inside me, and I was like, no, I have to do this. This is too cool. Things are working out really well. My ideas are actually fun, in this prototyping phase. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to go ahead and commit to this idea, and I'm going to see what the reception is going to be like. And so I started posting some early screenshots, some early mock-ups of like the title screen and some other things, and I started posting those on Reddit and Twitter just sort of anonymously. And the reception was crazy. I was getting more upvotes and likes on these things than I'd ever gotten on anything before, and all of these the people were commenting and commenting and commenting, saying, "Wow, this is insane! What game is this? Where can I wishlist this game? This is crazy." And I'm like, okay, I think like people are really like liking this idea, and that was a big motivation to kind of remove my scope limitations on it and feel like I think I'm going to go for this big game idea. I'm just going to go full bore on it. So I finished fleshing out the outline. I spent weeks and weeks just sort of like writing out this big outline of like what the timeline of the game was going to be. And at that point, once I had the outline in front of me, I was pretty certain that I was going to need some help to make this game in less than 10 years. Can Jay hear you?
Jay, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I hear you. Yeah, it looks like we were dropping some frames there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
just so
It happens. It happens, y'all. It happens.
yeah. Whew.
So, anyways, at that point, I started started looking for team members and some artists and people that I knew I would need to sort of bring this game to life in a decent amount of time. And I was really lucky on that front to meet the right people, just basically to be at the right places at the right time on the internet, to see all of them posting something with real passion and excitement and talent, and reaching out and talking with them. And at that phase, we had basically started making the plan to bring the game to Kickstarter, since we had such a success with showing it off, promoting the game on social media and Reddit and places like that. We felt like Kickstarter was kind of the best idea to not only help us fund the game and hopefully, get some help there so that we can make it in the way that we want to without having to make too many sacrifices. And the rest is history at this point, I suppose. So the TLDR of that is, the original idea started for the game about five years ago, and principal development started about 2 years ago.
Awesome. Hey, guys, just so you know, everyone in chat, I certainly apologize for that, but both James and myself are having bad storms right now. That's why he couldn't join us on video, and that's why we are having some connectivity issues. So just as a heads up, sorry about that pause there. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm glad that the stream didn't fully drop, because then I would have had to open up another one, and we'd lose a whole bunch of people. So please bear with us on that. Mother Nature's causing a little bit of havoc. I know that was happening to you a couple days ago too, Phil.
Yeah.
But so we're going to keep going down the chat here. So Catherine says, you're doing it right. And then Rush Dog says, this trailer looks awesome. And Kitten Gamer says, it is. And Catherine says, they're so glad to have you too. And then Big Cal says, active Discord community, aka we're all insane and cause chaos on a daily basis. So
That's true.
That's awesome, man. A Discord community can be a truly beautiful thing, especially when everyone's just jiving.
I'll be honest. I'm in there, and I've lost time talking to some people. I've jumped into a couple of wish chats too. I mean, it's just wonderful, loving, passionate, excited people. That's what you want. That's the kind
Mhm.
of community you want.
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So this one comes from Kitten Gamer, and they ask, "What character are you most proud of?"
Ooh, first of all, hi, Kitten. I know Kitten is from Finland, so it's very late there. So thank you for hanging out with us. Let's see, which character am I most proud of? That's a tough one, actually, because I I actually love all of the characters. I put a lot of time into giving each of them not just like a unique personality, but a very interesting story of their own too. There's not really any character in the game that doesn't have their own sort of history and hardships and triumphs and um, sort of their own moral compass. I really tried to make each of them super unique. If I had to choose one single character, oh wow, I think I'm Team Alistair for sure.
So guys,
Al-
if you've only looked at it on the surface, I really suggest that you go check out. There's so much information on his Kickstarter page. There's these awesome like character descriptions and more pictures of all the characters. So if you want some more background on that and you still haven't checked that out, definitely go check that out because not only is the game incredible and everything they're doing is incredible, there's so much information on that Kickstarter. It's no wonder people are supporting it in droves because I see a lot of Kickstarter campaigns where it's literally like a couple pictures and like a proof of concept, and that's it. And he
yeah.
literally has like a Bible of awesome world building and character details and game details for you to really know what you're getting into. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let everyone know that if they haven't seen that, they got to go check that out.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing for me. I mean, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to this stuff too. So for me, it's just it's a big part of the fun is crafting a world that feels like it's always been there and has this legacy and history that existed long before the game and long after the game. I think that's just super fun. But also, I feel like I'm presenting this project to the public, to people and asking for their help. And it's a big project, and I felt that it was super important to show them that there's been a lot of thought and effort and planning that's gone into this, just as a show of faith that like I'm asking for your help, and here's the proof that I'm crazy, basically. But yeah,
And
Alistair, I think is maybe my personal pick, just because he has one of the more mysterious and interesting backstories, and he's a character that's going to go through a lot of development and just has a very kind of mysterious past that as it gets revealed through the story makes him not just a very cool character but relatable in pretty deep ways too. So I think overall he's my favorite, but it's maybe by 1% over the others because they all just have a lot of charm and uniqueness to them too.
Good deal. All right.
just wanted to say something. You were talking about, how much detail and information that you put in the Kickstarter, how you wanted to be so transparent. And I just respect that so much because you're right. You are asking for the game community to help fund your game so you can make it a reality. And being transparent, being open, being honest, showing them all of this information, showing that you're really dedicated, you're really serious about that. I feel it really helps because if you're trying to be successful on Kickstarter, I mean, you want to be as transparent as possible. You want people to believe that this is a real project, this is a real game. You're not going to just take their money and disappear, and never give them a game. So yeah, man, that's amazing, and maybe it's bold to say this, but I feel like if we were in the '90s and your game was coming out, back on the PS1 or whatever, I feel like it would probably have just trumped a Final Fantasy game. That's what I honestly feel. And fast forward today, you would probably be the Square Enix, except not so goofy now. Like Square Enix, I don't know what happened to them. I mean, I really don't.
All right, so
Yeah. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, just a quick thing too, like touching on earlier about the kind of feelings with AAA and how the dynamics of the gaming space is now. I was thinking about this the other day. In the late '90s and actually I think maybe even more so in the 2000s, as we kind of went through in the earlier mid 2000s, when the internet was much more of a thing too. I remember in that era that we really had this like hero dynamic with certain game developers and studios where like I think a lot of times of like how I felt about Blizzard back in the day. To me, those developers were really like rock stars. They were like superheroes because they were doing their own thing and they were making these incredible games and they were doing it, like on their terms, and they at the time weren't super crazy corporate. And so there was I felt this big excitement for these hero developing teams who were going to bring out this next big game, and it was going to be this global phenomenon, and we were all going to freak out. And that's really dead now. There really is, well, I should say in the way that it was in the AAA space, that's really gone at this point. I can't think of a single person in the last years where I've ever heard them be like, "Oh man, I really can't wait for that next game from Activision or whatever it is, EA or Blizzard is a great example nowadays of something most people are not excited about. And I think that the indie developers today are rekindling that sort of sense. I think when I think of developers that I'm really excited about, they're all in the indie space because there is that sort of passion and sentiment of like we're going to do things our way. We're going to make the game that we want and that we know people want, and to hell with modernizing it or sort of like chiseling it into this perfect consumer product that our shareholders think that we want. And I think indies are kind of carrying the torch at this point. Anyways, that was my thought.
I agree.
Absolutely,
I agree.
absolutely, and it's a beautiful thing. Um,
Mm.
and you can see that in the way your community is reacting. Kitten Gamer says best community. Um, the next question comes from our friend Zoo at Flippin' the Switch. And he says the JRPG genre is currently a red ocean in the indie space, second only to the Metroidvania genre. Is there anything that Seeds of Nostalgia does that you would consider disruptive to the genre?
Oh, I I don't know that I would use the term disruptive. The game the whole design philosophy behind the game wasn't necessarily to reinvent the wheel or to force some kind of crazy new hook that changes the entire dynamic. Something that we've said internally from the get go basically is that Seed of Nostalgia is a celebration and a continuation of the true JRPG genre. And what we're saying with that is that we want to make a classic inspired game that that has that is a modern experience without forcing this sort of modern mindset that it has to be something completely out of left field or different, or has to have this this elevator pitch hook kind of thing. What we're trying to do is take the things from those games of the '90s and the early 2000s, that the aspects of those games that were truly fun, that weren't burdensome, that made the genre magic, and we're trying to emphasize and amplify those as if we're back in 1999 or 2000 and trying to continue what was being done then. So like for example, the story of Seed of Nostalgia isn't following a lot of this modern trends where everything is sort of gamified and fourth wall breaking, or like being told from a mindset of perhaps modern politics or something like that. Instead, we're trying to be a bit ambitious and take ourselves and the project seriously, and really pushing ourselves to write impactfully and emotionally, like they did, like Phil was talking about Final Fantasy VIII. Like for me, all of the Final Fantasy games on the PS1 are masterpieces, and those stories dealt with such serious themes and real human emotion, and the characters go through trauma, and they deal with it for better or for worse. There's not always a happy ending to everything, and everything doesn't have to have this sort of joke laid over the top of it to make it feel like a proper game. So like that's one thing with the story. We're trying to take it very seriously, and we're not just trying to make a good video game story. We're trying to make a good story in general, and with character developments too, and other things like that. Like anyone who's played through the library of JRPGs knows that, like, you're going to boot that game up. Maybe you've played it already 2 or 3 times, and there's always those parts in those games where you're like, "Oh man, I love this game, but damn, I am not looking forward to that one part, that one slog, or where I have to chill outside of that village and grind enemies for an hour so I can keep having fun." So we're trying to isolate the things that were fun and were great and led to good pacing, and just avoid entirely, segments of the game that are just sort of a slog, or just there to inflate the number of hours and things. So basically, our mindset is just to hone in on the fun and the experience, and the basically anything that helps you escape. Something that can is good enough that it takes your mind off of your everyday worries and troubles, and you can sort of just get lost in this world for a while and go on an adventure with these characters and overcome massive odds and feel like a total badass, and kill God and rescue kittens. Just, but that's kind of our thing. So I wouldn't say that we're going to be disruptive to the genre. I think that we're going to help build it up and reinforce the things that make the genre so cool.
Good deal. Good deal. So back to the chat. Um, Daniel Scott says, I asked how in depth will character interactions dialogue be, and the response I got was very. Immediately back to the Kickstarter. Artwork, gameplay, and OST all look and sound fantastic. And then Kitten Gamer says, and the best dev of the year award goes to? And then Catherine says, 100% best dev. So it looks like your community is very, very enamored with you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on that note of like character development and interaction, for me that's super super important. Not just that the story is moving along, but those little slice of life moments between the characters. They're resting around a campfire, and I want the characters to be talking about the things that they've just gone through, like how they felt about the dungeon, the secret they just found at the end of that last dungeon, or the political strife that's happening in that region. And I think that key, the key to making a living breathing world, or at least a world that feels that way, is characters need to adapt and they need to change with the story. So I nailed down a technique that I use all the time when I was developing earlier RPGs, and that's what I call region phasing. So as the story progresses, you're flipping these sort of invisible flags behind the scene in the code. And when you return to, a village that you saw in the first few hours, those the characters' dialogues, all of the NPCs in that village are going to be saying different things because this invisible flag's been flipped. but as a player, it's going to be cool because you might go back and talk to that old lady that was standing outside of the temple, and now she's going to be talking about rumors of this crazy thing that happened in another kingdom, that you just went through. And they'll change where they're at. Maybe they have new habits when you return. The shopkeepers are going to have new items. There's a reason to go back because maybe each village has its own unique crafting style. So you might want to go back to the first village you went to because it's got recipes or crafted items that are going to be super strong at the areas that are 20 hours into the game. So that's a big thing, and just that the world needs to change with you. And yes, it does. It does take a lot more effort, and things like localizing into other languages. It's going to add a lot more work there too. But it's one of those things that just, again, it's a multiplier of the experience for the players. It multiplies the feeling of that being a real world, that those characters have a life, and yeah, character interaction is super key, and it's something that I love from when other games did it. That's something that I really liked from the Tales series. You had your characters sort of chatting with each other as you're walking around villages and talking. Those little blurbs are popping up, and those little character interactions that aren't really affecting the game at all made those characters feel so real, and it made running through a dungeon so much more fun when characters are like complaining about how nasty the dungeon is, or that they can't find the exit. So I just love stuff like that, and it's definitely going to be in Suit of Nostalgia.
That's awesome. Yeah, some of those were incredible. Like I remember I love the ones in Berseria, and I really
Mhm.
liked the ones in Abyss, even though they sadly weren't voice acted. But yeah, they were
Mhm.
always like a refreshing little side piece to whatever was going on to keep it nice and fresh. So that's really cool. Um, so then we have a couple more questions from the audience before I go to Phil with some questions he has for you. So the next question I have is from Kitten Gamer, and they ask, "Can you customize the airship in any way, change its color, etc.?"
So that's something that I would like to do, but it's not basically in the engine at this point. The game does have a pretty big collectible sort of meta game going on. There's lots of things hidden that you can find that will unlock, like, say, cosmetic alternate appearances for your characters. And there are collectibles that are very hidden throughout the world that are airship specific. So what happens when you find those collectibles is they they uh, they will appear in the inside of your airship. So this is a full blown airship. It's not like just something you're going to climb into and just get around the world map. You can go into your airship as well, kind of like those PS1 Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can explore around, you can interact with the characters, you can find specific NPCs through the story who will then join you on your airship and unlock things like unique shops, and things like that too. But these specific airship collectibles, when you find them, they they're used to decorate the inside of your airship. So if you're super savvy and you end up finding all of these, you're going to have the most decked out, luxurious airship that you've ever seen,
Nice.
including things like the jukebox, which we just found. So when you hear music and you enter new areas, this unlocks tracks that you can play in your airship and listen to while you're flying around too. As far as like external airship customization, it's definitely something that we could do. It's not a real big task to have the artists make alternate versions. So at this point, I'll just say nothing confirmed, but I'll add it to my list.
All right. We're getting a ton of questions here, so I'm going to try to read through a couple more of them. We have five or six backing up here. You're super popular, James. So another one from Zoo over at Flipping the Switch. What are some of the advantages or challenges of doing a Kickstarter versus traditional investment or self-funding? Is having a direct investor relationship acting as a wind at your back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's definitely pros and cons to funding through Kickstarter, as opposed to, say, signing like a publisher deal for funding, or working with an investor, or even going so far as to like apply for grants or something, which I've seen some other devs have some success with. There, the cons, I would say, of doing a Kickstarter is that it's going to eat up a lot of your time while you're planning and when you're doing it. This is something that other developers told me before I started, that you're basically just going to have to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to lose about 4 months of time to work on the game to do it, because you do have to create so many assets. You've got to create trailers that show off at least something new. And then there's just, the sort of staying in contact with your community, with your backers, with people asking you questions. It is going to eat up all of your time. So that's really the only con, I would say, that comes to mind, is that you do sort of have to plan for 4 months to half a year. Is you're really going to slow down on development while you're doing that. But I would say the benefits of doing crowdfunding as opposed to signing like a heavy publisher deal is that you're going to, it's as good of a marketing campaign as you possibly can, because you're basically going to get to pitch everything about your game to a really big audience. It ties into that community thing again. You have an opportunity to really connect in an intimate way with the people who want to play your game, who want to support your game and own your game, which would be very, very hard to do if you weren't on a crowdfunding sort of site. Like building a Discord server, for example, is a very slow process that just takes a long time, and there's not usually a big motivation, for people to join a bunch of servers. So I think with Kickstarter, you get the benefit of funding, but you also get the benefit of building a community, and building an audience and connecting with them in a way that I can't really think of any other avenue to sort of reach that goal. There's, I suppose, if you were going to sign, so let's say you wanted to do funding through a publisher, um, if a publisher, liked your game or played a demo or whatever, and was willing to push to the point of like, okay, we're going to sign NDAs and we're going to talk about this. Of course, you can get funding pretty quickly that way, which can be nice. And if you don't really have a lot of resources, you can lean on them for things like localization, for console ports, for some marketing, and that can be good. But there's a lot of pitfalls associated with that too. So if a publisher, generally speaking, this isn't always the case, but I would say the majority of the time it is. Let's say they give you $50,000 to make your game. Well, that's not really them giving you $50,000. That's them investing $50,000 now, and they're going to expect to make that back when your game releases. So whether you're doing crowdfunding or you're doing that, you're sort of just offsetting when those costs are coming down the line for you. And by working with a publisher, you are sort of giving up some of your autonomy to do things on your own terms. Not necessarily bad if you already have a great work ethic and the publisher is ethical and has a great, work ethic as well. Then that can work just fine. But I think in the indie space, for me, or just maybe for me personally, I like to take care of anything that I can do myself. I don't really mind if it's going to be a bit of extra work. Um, if I can just do it myself and stay in control. I wouldn't say that I'm a full-blown control freak, but my game projects are like a baby to me too. So I have a bit of an aversion of like giving up so much control over the project. And a publisher or an investor isn't going to give you really the visibility and the connection to an audience that something like crowdfunding will. And it just gives you more options. And even if for developers who do want to work with a publisher to take care of everything, running a successful campaign also gives you a better footing and foundation when you're going to enter those meetings. because you've basically proven that, there is a public desire for this game. It is marketable, which will just probably do you a lot of favors when it comes time to negotiating.
Good deal. All right, so we have some more questions here. Um, we have Anthony saying he backed this game, and then Catherine says, "Welcome to the backer group, Anthony." Then we had the
Ah,
stream apocalypse when the stream froze up. And Miss Mandia says, it's great to hear so much thought went into the pacing. And King Koba said it's all about microtransactions nowadays with these other companies. Daniel says, love
oof.
everything you're saying, James.
Thank you.
Kitten Gamer says, the way you've created your character sounds so lovely. And then we have a question from Catherine. I know we've had some mini brainstorming sessions in the Discord about story and gameplay. How have those sessions you had with us impacted or changed how you're developing parts of the game?
Pretty heavily, actually, more than I think would be expected at the earlier stage that we're at now. Some things off the top of my head. There was a lot of discussion earlier on about combat pacing. A lot of people were saying, they love turn-based, but sometimes, if they're grinding, they want to be able to speed up combat. They want to be able to do that faster. So, and I heard that a lot too. So that's in the game, or at least being developed now. Things like battle quality of life, you can fast forward, you can set your battle speed. There's an auto battle now if you just want to do some mindless grinding. I had a lot of feedback about making sure that things like cutscenes or long story segments, that there's an option to sort of fast forward or to skip those. So that's something that we added. And while I'm, like if we're spending a lot of time writing stories and having cutscenes animated, of course, as a developer, it's like, oh, I hope people won't skip that. But their feedback was based around the fact that, well, what if I'm playing the game on my second playthrough and I don't want to watch that huge segment again? And it's like, wow, that completely makes sense. I get it. So let's do that. That just makes perfect sense to me. We've also had a lot of brainstorming about, abilities and things that people thought would be cool or fun. There's been some talks about itemization and how people like that to work, and we have a lot of notes on that already. So it's kind of funny that we're not quite at the beta phase where they're actually in the game, and we're already getting sort of feedback that they notice just visually from the clips that we've shown. So that's cool. But I think once the demo beta is out and then the public demo is out too, this is going to be the phase where we're really locked into gathering feedback about optimizing things that need attention. And I'm really excited to hear both what people love, because that'll tell me, okay, this is something that they really liked from that. I'm just going to start adding this stuff everywhere, and also the things that people don't like. I'm excited to hear, things that maybe we as a team were thinking, oh, that's going to be cool. And if I hear, like this isn't really adding to the fun of the game, or it just doesn't make sense, that's going to be so great to hear at an early phase in development rather than later, so that we can address those things quickly and then not waste time years down the road when people are like, that thing sucks, or I wish you would have done it this way. We can take the time and take the months to listen to hear what's good and what isn't, and we can make those changes at this phase so that we can confidently continue on, knowing that the design of the game is exactly not just what we want, but what JRPG players want.
Yeah, that's going to be invaluable because if you were working with like a large company that was backing you, you're probably not going to get that kind of feedback until later on, and then it becomes much harder to implement the changes.
It's better to put in the hours and put in the work now and really listen and do what you can to make it than try to do damage control when you're getting review bombed because you didn't listen to anybody, at the end. So it's better now for us to just really take the time to listen to perfect the craft and then just go full steam ahead with the confidence.
Beautiful. So they did point out that I missed a question up, so I scrolled back up. Daniel asks, do you see this world continuing in a potential sequel, or is it more likely you guys would move on to a completely different world or genre for your next game?
Uh, it, de- well, okay, I guess I can't completely confirm this, but this universe, the Seed of Nostalgia universe, is something that we would like to continue on. We already have some micro plans, sort of in the vault for how we would like to expand this universe after launch. And it's something that kind of boils down to with once the game is ready, if people are loving it and the game is selling and there is this sort of desire for more, then we're definitely going to give you more. I was answering some questions in the Discord a little earlier today. People were asking if there was going to be like some DLC or expansion packs afterwards. And we've actually been planning the end game around the idea that we want it to be expandable. We want to have it in a way that makes sense, so that if we do add more content, that it makes sense with the base game and doesn't just feel like we're tacking on something totally separate. And as a studio, our thoughts on DLC is that if we do have DLC, it will always be free for anyone that owns the base game. And I think that's not just like a player friendly philosophy, but it's just something that makes sense for us as a studio too, because by adding more content and updating content after the fact, it's going to make more people want to buy the base game. And the base game itself is, what we want to keep alive as long as possible. So if we do end up doing DLC, it'll be something that anybody who owns the game is going to be able to download and sort of expand from there. We've talked a bit about sequels to this too, and that's definitely something. Again, if the game gets a great reception and people want more, then we will definitely do that. The thing that we haven't decided on yet is whether that's going to look more like, whether we should go direct sequel where these characters from the game continue on to some other adventure and how we would do that, or if it's going to be more like how the Final Fantasy universe does it, where you basically have the universe of this game franchise, but every game is sort of its own story or its own timeline and its own characters. So I'm not exactly sure which of those two we would choose if we end up doing a sequel or not. Um, but uh, but we're completely open to it, and yeah, I mean, I don't see us switching and like starting to develop platformers or something like that after this game. I think RPGs are our true love, and as a studio, I think I would love to just keep making great adventures in the genre and build a portfolio of quality JRPGs.
So that's something beautiful, folks. Not only are you going to fall in love with these characters if you already haven't, but they're probably going to have a sequel to the game, which is beautiful. So it's good to know that this isn't even like a short term thing we're looking at here. Now, this guy's building an empire. So this is awesome. The next question comes from David, and it related to things we could get for the airship. Will there specifically be furniture for the airship?
There will be furniture in the airship. Is his question more like, can you decorate the airship?
Yes, with
Is
furniture.
Nothing in the plans for that sort of thing, but I think we're already going to have sort of the system in place for the airship collectible cosmetics, to where you can kind of move them around and place them where you want them. So if like full blown furniture decoration is something that people would like in airships, that's something that we could just copy that sort of code over and just sort of expand it. Um, if it's an idea, I'll definitely add to my list, and probably something good for like a Discord poll. Though I think I can read the future on that. When you ask people, "Hey, do you want more cool stuff?" The answer is always yes. That's a cool idea. I mean, I guess the NPCs are going to need somewhere to sit. So
Right, right. All right. So before we move on to the lightning round, I will put it out to the chat one more time. If you have any more questions, let's get them in there now. Phil, did you have any questions specifically for James that you have been dying to ask while we've been going through the chat's questions?
Questions. So, I have a few here that I could ask you. Just thinking about, while we're talking. So one of my questions is, what was something from earlier builds of the game that you had to remove or completely change from the current version of the game?
mm, I suppose in some like in the prototyping phase, I was messing around with very large maps, nearing like micro open world areas in the game. And I ended up scrapping those and changing it. Not completely for performance reasons. I mean, that would have needed to be changed for like if it does improve performance to break things up. But the reason I actually decided to not have these massive sort of singular areas is because it seemed to me that it would actually make it very hard to find certain things in those areas. It was a little too easy to get lost, and there's no like compass in the game that points you at a quest objective because I just don't think that that's really necessary or fits with a classic genre. Um, and so I found that actually not only was the game a little bit easier to navigate and play when maps were broken up into a more intelligent way, but it actually I found that my level designs improved greatly when I could hyper focus on every scene being as beautiful as possible instead of just trying to fill space so that they could run further without entering, a different map. So
Mm.
that's really one big thing that I did change pretty early on because it just felt better and the level design was better. Now there are still some pretty open maps too, but definitely not at the level that I prototyped. That's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else that got scrapped really yet.
Mm. That's really cool though to hear that you were tinkering around with that. Who knows? Maybe if you got tons and tons of money, you can do something more grandiose in the future. Okay, so moving on. What are some of the guest talent or some people working on the game, fans of JRPGs, would recognize or know, or just from like video games in general? Because I know on the Kickstarter there were some stretch goals and community goals to unlock some guests. And what can you tell for everybody watching who those people are and what would we recognize them from?
Sure. So we're collaborating with a few people on the soundtrack for the game. So we're working. One of the guest composers is going to be working on the game is Eddie Marianacro, who was the composer for the game Chained Echoes, which was another amazing, awesome indie JRPG that came out a couple years ago. And anybody who's played that game knows that the music is breathtaking. Eddie is an incredible composer, and he's become a pretty awesome friend of mine and of Mushra's. Just a lot of fun to work with, and a really creative person. So he'll be helping out with some pretty special themes for the game, and he's actually already written a regional theme for an area that's fairly early in the story called the Corrupted Forest, which is incredible. And you can actually check that his demo for that on the campaign page. We're also working with Hiroki Kikuta, who is the composer from the Mana series. He's also worked on a lot of other things, but if anybody's played Secret of Mana or Trials of Mana or even Visions of Mana, which just came out, then you intimately know his work. This is a legend of in the genre who's been making music for these games since the early 90s. And that is a huge honor for us, not just because the Mana series is such a big inspiration, but because we're just huge fans of the style of music that he makes. Even for JRPGs, Kikuta has a really unique style with unique instrument choices and really cool percussive elements. So that for us is just one of those sort of like childhood bucket list checklist things of working with somebody who made music for games that were so important to us. That one is really huge. Um, Another one that we actually just unlocked, well, the community unlocked today, was our final community goal, and that is to have Miss Emmy Evans do guest vocal singing on a very important song from the soundtrack.
I love vocal
Anyone who
track.
Yeah, and anyone who's not familiar with Emmy Evans, she sang on the Dark Souls soundtrack. She's the singer from the Nier games.
Oh
She
wow.
sang on Grand Blue Fantasy and many, many, many more awesome games. She has the voice of an absolute angel. I can't get enough of it. And another cool thing is that she actually creates her own singing language for these projects. She writes the lyrics in these sort of what she refers to as chaos languages. And so
Mm.
it has this, her style has this very mystical sort of feeling that just it's just transports you into another world. So I'm so excited that we're going to be involving her, and it will be one of the most important songs from the soundtrack too. So that's going to make it just really special, and just really proud and impressed at the community again that we had to run these community goals twice in the last month because the first round of them they unlocked all the rewards so fast that it wasn't even 2 weeks in, and we had to make a bunch of new ones. So I'm impressed that they
Uh,
shared a campaign so heavily. It's been incredible. So we're super excited about the those collaborations. We also, with the final stretch goal of the campaign, will be working with a an orchestra to score some of the more uh, important and exciting songs from the game. Final boss theme,
Wow.
and just to add that sort of feeling, this bombastic living sort of music feeling for several of the biggest themes. And that's something that I never thought that I would be involved in or have the resources or capability of adding to the game. I'm a really big fan of the original Grandia game, and a big part of that too is the orchestral music that of that game that just feels like one of the best cinematic movie scores you've ever heard. So I was super excited and was introduced through Eddie and Gregory, who is an amazing flute player who's doing some flute recordings for us. We were introduced to a conductor and really an orchestral genius, an amazing guy who's going to help out with this project and has done orchestral scoring for many, many, many projects. And so we were just sort of lucky that introduction was made and that this sort of opportunity landed on us. and just for the community for fun helping us fund so much that we can make that a reality. So there's a lot of fun collaborations that are in the works, specifically for the music side of things, which is going to be awesome. Just going to be so fun.
That is really, really awesome. And I just wanted to add in a little business note here. For anyone that's coming looking for the Lonesome Village stream, just so everyone knows, I was not ignoring James earlier. I was actually posting to Twitter to inform folks that we're actually moving the second half of the stream to tomorrow night, so we can devote our full attention and time here because we're having a great conversation with James. So if anyone is coming to look for Lonesome Village, we will see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for an exclusive stream of Lonesome Village to support the Second Chance sale. We're going to continue with James here because we're having a great discussion and we have a ton more chat questions and we still haven't got to the lightning round. So Phil, do you have any more questions?
Yeah. Then, so yeah, everybody look forward to that because I mean this is a great conversation and it's hard to break it up because it's just having such a good time. So please look forward to that tomorrow. And also I want to say because we were talking off stream, you mentioned that you had someone else that's going to be joining that's pretty special. You said they worked on BioShock, correct?
Yeah, so I was introduced to someone from another game developer about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. And they said, "Hey, I've got this friend who comes from the AAA space, but he's looking, he's a big JRPG and tactics RPG fan, and he kind of wanted to just start working on games that he actually felt passionate about. So he had been working on a project, but he was much more interested in finding a team that he could contribute on with other people. And so I was introduced, had his contact information passed, and we started talking. Really cool guy. I have to say, the most impressive art portfolio I have ever seen in my life. And come to find out, he was an artist that worked on the BioShock series, which is a big favorite of mine in the first-person genre. Incredible games. Again, if you've played those, you know that those are very art-forward games. They're very stylized. They're just gorgeous. So needless to say, I was pretty excited. So we had been talking and have continued to talk, and it just once again felt lucky that he loved the look of Seed of Nostalgia. It was just kind of the style of game that he personally loves, and wants to work on. And his portfolio basically was just a perfect match of that mid late 90s pixel art style that's just incredible. So we will be bringing him onto the team as well to help give us a big update on the character sprites, to add more detail to all the big characters of the game, new battle animations, environmental designs. It's going to be a great addition, and just another person that's super passionate about JRPGs and super talented, hopping on our airship. So it's just a great thing that seemed to work out serendipitously, and very exciting for the future on that.
That's so awesome. Like BioShock is such a great game series. So I mean, and all these other, yes, it's just this game gets better and better the more I hear it. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
but
let's at this point, like it can it get any better? Like,
I mean,
it sounds unreal.
So. This sounds like a AAA game, like a AAA game from the past, because Square Enix and all those RPGs, like, you would look towards them as inspiration. Like, that is what you aimed for your game to be. You were hoping to get that kind of success. It was the gold star standard. And man, you are bringing it. You are bringing it hard, and I am so excited. This is, whew. But moving on, I mean, just that's because me and Jay, we're collectors. So Do you have a game collection? If so, how many games do you have, and what is your most cherished game in your collection?
So I do have a game collection. It's not the biggest game collection, and the heartbreaking thing about that is my collection is still back in Oregon, in the U.S., where I normally live. However, I've relocated to South America to completely devote myself to making this game without distractions, with a lower cost of living, so I can put all the money into the project. But the unfortunate
That's
fact is I just can't bring my games with me. But thankfully, they're safe with my best friend still in Portland. If I had to pick one game that is my most cherished, it would definitely have to be Earthbound, the big box with the guide.
Ooh, you got the big box. Wow.
It's maybe the most valuable thing I own. I don't know.
Oh wow, man, that's awesome. Awesome. So,
It's actually the first thing I've had since I was a kid. My dad picked it up at a garage sale when Earthbound was not a popular game and wasn't doing good in the U.S. Um, it was one of those things that no one would have known it was going to skyrocket and get this cult following. I thought it was cool because it was just a giant box, and it had this art. And Earthbound is one of my absolute top three favorite games of all time, too. So it has that sentimental value for me.
is it still in good condition? Does it still have everything?
It has everything. It's in pretty good condition.
Because I know back then as a kid, you just don't really take care of anything. So I just had to ask a little side question if it's still in good
Well,
condition.
like the edges of the box have definitely been worn down a bit. Some of the pages in the guide got bent a bit, but it's still to me the ultimate treasure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So just taking a little shift from video games, so the community can know a little better. What do you enjoy doing outside of video games? What are some of your other non-gaming hobbies?
I'd say my biggest non-gaming hobby would be music. I've been a guitar player for over 20 years now. I was a professional musician for 10 years. I play guitar all the time. I also play bass and piano, and I love making music. I love performing. I love recording and creating music. So that's probably my biggest non-gaming hobby. But most of the time these days, if I'm not working on the game and stuff like that, I like to go on hikes with my dogs, play with the dogs. I'm a big cook and a foodie, so I love cooking. I like trying, new recipes. I like cooking for friends, and just, like hanging out, smashing some good food, having a beer or two, talking with them. Pretty normal stuff, I think.
I got to interrupt here. So the guitar thing, I've been a guitarist my whole life. I got my beloved Ibanez. So who is your favorite guitarist of all time, James?
Oh, favorite guitarist of all time. Stevie Ray Vaughan, actually.
Awesome. And my favorite is Steve
Yeah.
Vai. Love Steve
Hey,
Vai.
nice. Incredible guitar player. Love Steve Vai. I've been listening to him for a very long time. Passion and Warfare, one of my favorite albums.
Beautiful. Good stuff. All right.
And I
So
just want to say, I mean, you can cook for me and Jay anytime. We'll find a way. We'll find a way to get there.
Yield.
all right. So I do want to quickly shift over to a couple more chat questions. All right.
Okay.
So we have one from Kitten Gamer, and they say, I think it was the beta test that backers get to try. How long is the test going to be, if that can be answered? Excited to try the game.
Yeah, good question. So instead of blocking the beta behind like higher tiers, we just decided that anybody that supports us on Kickstarter gets access to this. How long that period will last is not like there's not like a hard limit to that. We kind of want to open it up to the backers to mess around with, and we'll kind of set that date limit based on how that's going. Because if there are some issues or feedback that's coming in great numbers, then we kind of want to give them enough time to really explore, to be able to sort of mess with everything that the beta has. Um, it's and if there are some bigger issues, we also kind of want to leave that period open so we could maybe update some of those things while the beta is still happening, so they could have another chance to check out some of the small changes. If I had to make sort of a ballpark estimate, I think that beta period will probably last between 1 and 2 months is kind
Wow.
of what I'm thinking. If everything is great and there aren't a lot of issues and people are like, okay, this is great, we're happy with this, then maybe closer to 1 month. If there are issues that we kind of want to fix and see what they think about the changes, then it's probably going to be closer to 2 months. And then once that beta period closes, we're going to go back under our rocks and, of course, update things, fix any of the issues, if there's little bugs or, collision issues, any of those small things. We're going to fix all of that before we release the demo to the public. And it's another one of those situations where it's just sort of a win-win for all of us. Our supporters get the exclusive chance to check it out first. They get, they're going to be the ones who get to be heavily involved in telling us, what they like and what they wish was a little different, or if they have ideas for things. And then that lets us sort of take that to heart and optimize the demo and do more QA on our end and get it up to a perfect state and before we release the demo to the public. So when people who are just sort of finding out about us after the campaign and after that beta period, they'll also have a benefit of having a demo that's a lot more of a polished experience than maybe the very first time something goes out. So I think it's going to be a fun time for all of us. But yeah, I think 1 to 2 months is probably a good ballpark estimate.
That is awesome because a lot of places it's like a quick snapshot. So it's really cool that you're estimating that they're going to have that much time with the game, and I think that will also benefit you too. It's going to be huge. So I do want to roll through a little bit of the chat before we get to a couple more questions. I don't want people to feel like I'm not seeing their chats here. So Catherine says, totally geeking out over Kikuta-san and Emmy Evans, because that's definitely cool. Um, and then Rush Dog says, an orchestral score is a great stretch goal. Catherine says, 1812 overture level music. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then PT6 says, I've come to rep the SON group stylishly late because life is busy.
Hey, nice.
Let's see. And then Kitten Gamer says, is this game actually real?
It is real. It really is really, really real.
uh, and then Catherine says, it's so close to hitting 350K, and the chat goes wild for that. That's incredible. Rush Dog
Cool.
says, moving to South America for development is interesting. We have some
Yeah,
Earth.
I mean that,
Go ahead.
it's a big life change with that, but it honestly makes sense if you think about it. If I had stayed in the U.S. and everyone in chat who lives in the U.S. knows that it's a little hard. Like times are pretty rough right now, and money just doesn't really stretch as far as it used to,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of uncertainty and all sorts of other stuff happening. And I could have stayed there and developed the game too, but I knew that doing like a Kickstarter was going to give us some amount of funding. It wasn't expecting as much as it is, but I just felt like relocating to another country where my personal, needs of survival would be a, a minuscule percentage of what they would be in the US, that I would be able to devote everything into the project, and I wouldn't end up in this sort of nightmare situation where it's like, do I pay for another pixel art background, or do I pay my rent this month? So it was a big transition. It's not always easy, but it also has the benefit of giving me a lot of peace and quiet, and some beautiful nature to be inspired by too. So I'm pretty thankful that I was able to do that. The visa process of moving here was a nightmare that never ended, though. So I'm very glad now that that's all behind me. But yeah, basically just I'll do anything to make sure that this dream becomes a reality. So it's just a no-brainer for me.
Beautiful.
It's dedication. That is dedication. That you would move to a whole other country and give up your life there, and just so you could maximize profit for this game. I can't say a lot of other developers would do the same. At least developers that I've met. That dude, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I
All
mean, I'm
right.
sort of just, I guess, lucky too with the position. Like, I'm not married and I don't have kids too. So, I mean, I'll say it was a lot easier for me to make that call than maybe some other developers who have a lot of responsibilities
Mm.
and priorities that need to be taken care of. But yeah, I mean, I want to make games for the rest of my life if I can. So I'll do anything I can to make that happen and get it going.
All right. So then PT6 says, them scratch and sniff cards are still my favorite perk of any collector's edition. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And then he says Tom Morello still might be his favorite guitarist.
Oh, cool.
So that's pretty cool. And then we have Just the Gems in the house. Brandon says
Oh,
he's really looking
Brandon.
forward to this one. He's been seeing a lot about it on Twitter. If you guys don't know Brandon, he's one of the JRPG experts. So he's definitely checking out the game. And then we have Catherine saying we hit 350,000. Awesome,
Oh my
awesome.
God.
Yes, guys,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
a big. Everyone should be clapping at home, looking like weirdos,
Yeah.
sitting alone watching the stream. But that is huge. That is huge, and I honestly hope even if one or two people jumped on because we were able to feature you on here, I really hope that happened because you deserve the world for what you're doing here.
Amen.
Let's see. Um, Rush Dog says Jay is doing a good job as a host. Thank you, thank you. Uh,
Yes.
But I do want to get to. I had to skip over some questions to get down through the chat. So, Catherine, I think, had another good question. No, it was Kitten Gamer. Uh, it's about the fights. There was that one video where Attila is fighting enemies, and after winning, Attila does a cute little pose. Will every character have that, and can that thing stay?
Every character has a little victory pose. All of them have unique ones. You gotta have it. They gotta make some moves for that sweet loot they just got.
That is such a huge thing in like every role playing game. Like I remember one of my favorite things about the first two Trails games was that whoever hit the last blow would not only do a little pose, but like they'd say something crazy, and I just
Oh yeah.
always loved it. So that's awesome that you're going to be featuring that. Well, let's see. A lot of questions tonight. This is awesome. This is the kind of
Wow.
interaction you love to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, here's another good one. This is the one that was from Catherine. Food. What is your favorite cuisine and dish, James?
Ooh, that's tough. Ooh, yeah. I don't know that I could land on like okay, so let's just do cuisine. I think if I had to choose one regional cuisine that's my all-time favorite, I would have to say Thai food is probably my top, closely followed by Mexican food, which I could eat every day of the year forever, both of those. I also love Italian. I like French food. I like a bit of everything, but I think Thai, if I had to choose one forever, it would be Thai food. I'm a real big spicy food fan. I love heat. and the Thai people are just too good at firing everything up. Favorite dish? Oh God, what? I don't know. Wow, that's rough. Favorite dish? I don't think I can answer that one, to be honest. I like too many things equally.
You're preaching to the choir, bro. Just look at me and Phil. You know
I
we
mean,
like to eat.
a couple of fat boys here.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So before we get to the lightning round, which you guys are going to love because you're going to get to know all about James and what he likes and dislikes about video games and everything, pop culture. Phil, did you have any last minute questions or chat before we move on to the lightning round?
Yeah, I have one final question, and this is kind of a doozy one. So get ready for that. It's with the current state of gaming and the game industry, what would you change about it? What would you feel would make it better? And what is your advice to the big corporations to improve gaming for the future?
I think all of those three questions for me would be answered would have the same answer, and that's to completely remove any predatory practices or profit focused mechanics. That includes microtransactions that are adding things that bloody well should have just been in the damned game. Like, I'm so sick of this. Like,
Man.
let's make the game and then let's take 10% of it and all of like the cool looking stuff and hide that behind hundreds of dollars of additional transactions.
Preach,
I
brother.
mean, this is something that's like they didn't want to be transparent about it, but it's absolutely crystal clear to all of us game enthusiasts that since they've been doing this for years now and nobody likes it, but they just did it anyways and they just never went back on it. And it's to the point now when a big studio does something that isn't slightly predatory, we're all totally surprised that they did something that's not predatory. And that is just a glaring, like, sort of painting of the current state of affairs in the corporate gaming world. And like when they push it so far too with added layers of FOMO and this sort of like, you gotta do it, and if you don't do it you're gonna miss out, and if you don't buy that skin or whatever it is then it's gonna be gone forever, even though we all know it's gonna come back next year. And gambling mechanics, and I think that in the very modern landscape, things like, oh, they're so ridiculous, like this sort of blockchain integration or adding crypto tokens so that players can play to earn. Well, they're just earning money for these scandalous developers, and this kind of stuff just has. It shouldn't have a place in the gaming space. I think it's another reason why indies are really carrying the torch, because 99.9% of indie developers don't want anything to do with that. And we're just trying to make games that are whole experiences. And so, yeah, I think if we removed this sort of predatory practices of just trying to prey on gamers wanting this whole experience and have all the cool options by spending and spending and spending and spending and spending is absolutely ridiculous. And gamers aren't telling these studios to hire thousands and thousands of employees and paying their CEOs millions and millions of dollars in bonuses. Like, no, like, we shouldn't be the ones who are footing the bill for them to exploit us further. It's just wrong.
I
Beautifully
agree. I
said.
mean, me and Jay on our own personal channels, we have been an advocate for this. And even though we got people that try to, be negative in the comments or tell us we're stupid or we're dumb or whatever, we care so much about gaming because we grew up in a time when gaming was just fun. before
Yep.
all of this stuff. And it's so sad to see so many people will just turn the cheek and accept it, saying they can't do anything about it when in fact you can. And I'm so glad that we have passionate creative developers like you out there that are fighting a good fight and putting out quality gaming experiences for yourself and for the community that everybody can be proud of.
Let me
Yep.
tell you one thing. I love that you are willing to speak your mind because especially with all of this Nintendo stuff and all of the, kind of negative news that's been out recently and these things that hurt gamers in the gaming community and the industry, so many developers and content creators are silent because they're afraid to bite the hand that feeds them. And I love to see someone who is just out here shining bright, who's willing to speak their mind and say, hey, these things aren't right. So, James, I certainly thank you for standing up for those things and being, willing and able to communicate that you're not okay with that.
Yeah, you've got to do it, and that's a another big aspect of like why I want to remain as independent as possible. Why I'm not and haven't been eager, to sign contracts with some bigger publisher or anything like that, because I want to remain autonomous and I want to be able to speak my mind about those things and create a game with my own philosophies and feelings about those things without having to worry about someone who may have given me some money hanging over my head and being like, well, we can't talk bad about Nintendo because we're a licensed partner with them and we need to. Well, it's no. Look, if they're trying to make it so that it's near impossible for physical manufacturers to make any games for their systems anymore, and all the gamers are going like, why can't I own anything anymore? And let's face it, like, gaming is not a cheap hobby. All of us, the gamers are some of the most magical, quote unquote, consumers in any media type. I mean, we, for decades, will spend so much money to keep this hobby and this lifestyle alive. And I'm like, I can't think of any other move, like not even Hollywood, where people are so willing to spend large amounts of money to play these experiences to make sure that they keep getting made, and to expect us to just like swallow whatever pill they want to shove down our throats and just deal with it. I don't even know, it's gross, really, because wow, like it makes me feel like, why would I spend another $1,000 on a new console and a couple games if I'm not going to be able to have the things that I want, and I don't even own the damn things anymore, and they're just going to keep charging me more but not offer me more. Like, this
Yep.
is not rocket science. If you're asking people to spend way more money, then why don't you give them more value for that money? It's just simple, and it's frustrating. And I share the frustrations with you guys and with the majority of people that are saying these things too.
So luckily, right, you have signed up with someone like Premium, and I'm sure they'll help iron it out, and you will get the beautiful full physical release that's deserved of this game. But I do want to ask you, would you ever be okay with your game being on a key card that required multiple downloads to function?
No, that's just so pointless. I mean, why go through the hassle of like, even just as a, like, if me as a developer working with you, Premium Edition, as a physical manufacturer and publisher, why would either of us spend the time to make a perfect experience, to get rid of all of the bugs, to polish everything to this level that we want to preserve, and then go through the process of getting all this artwork, and you guys are making these insane additions and putting art in every little inch of the packaging and stuff, just so somebody puts a little piece of plastic in their system and they wait while it downloads 60 gigs of stuff. And it's like, well, you don't really own it, but you've got the license for it. It's like, at that point, what's the point? You just release it digitally, like these, like people, like, companies like Nintendo are basically yelling at us that that's all they want to do at this point.
Beautiful, man. That is exactly the answer I wanted to hear. I think that's exactly the answer everybody wanted to hear. It's so damn refreshing. All right. There was one last question from the chat. It looks like, let's see, was it Catherine? No, it was Kitten. Just a little question. How are your dogs doing?
My dogs are doing great. Super happy. We got to play a little fetch earlier today, so they're all tuckered out and snoring.
Beautiful. Good deal. All right, guys, it is time for the lightning round where you are going to get to find out everything about the most awesome developer in the world, James, in our video game centric, JRPG centric lightning round. So basically, I have 20 questions. When I ask the question, I'll have Phil and James respond, then I'll quickly respond myself. You're not on a timer, but we'll try to answer quickly. First thing that comes to the top of your head. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
And
let's
chat,
go.
definitely play along. We definitely love to see the chat's answers, and I'll yell them out as we go. All right. So if I happen to cover a franchise that you're not sure about or you haven't really played, just say so. We're not all perfect. We all can't have played everything. All right. Question number 1 in the lightning round. Favorite Final Fantasy character ever? Phil,
You want me to go first?
Yeah, James,
Okay,
go ahead first.
Vivi from Final Fantasy IX.
Vivi. Phil?
My friend, dude. Oh gosh, man, I really love Evie. Ah, man, I'm gonna go with Mansex Sephiroth. I'm just gonna say Sephiroth. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's great.
Everybody
He's
loved
great.
the book Sephiroth. Okay.
I would say my favorite would probably have to be Vincent Valentine. And I
Oh,
love
yeah.
his huge hidden
I love
story throughout
too,
the
like-
games too. So
Great character. Yeah,
Ones.
really cool.
I can't pick. There's too many good ones. I can't. But
all right, we got Yay Vivi. We got Solace. Stupid cat. All right. So that was a good one. Very good answers. Vivi's always good. All right. Favorite Fire Emblem character?
I am not a Fire Emblem player. I have never played Fire Emblem.
Phil?
I'm gonna say, oh gosh, why is his name escaping me right now? Marth. Marth. I like Marth. I just think he's cool.
Anyone familiar with me or my channel knows that answer has to be Claude. So from the chat, we have Edgar and Sabine from Catherine. Awesome. Then we got Freddy Bear. Yes. Good times. All right. So, question 3. Favorite Xenoblade character?
Ooh, that's a good question. Phil, you go first.
I'm gonna actually cheat a little bit, and I'm just gonna say general. I'm gonna generalize it as like a Xeno character, and I'm gonna say Cosmos. She technically was in Xenoblade 2, so it counts.
I think for me, it's just Rex. I mean, great character, great heart, got a sick blade. Yeah, it's gonna be Rex.
For me, it absolutely has to be Elma. Period. And I'm one of the Xenoblade X boys, so it's also the best Xenoblade that was made too. So, all right, favorite JRPG villain.
Ooh, I like this one. Kefka, Final Fantasy VI.
favorite JRPG villain. I can't think of his name. But I really liked it. It was in Grandia 2. Mandy would know. It was the guy that he had the armor and he had a big old horn and blue hair, and I couldn't beat his boss fight forever. And everybody,
Melthus.
so cool, huh?
Melthus.
Yes, yes, I love that guy. He was so cool, but
It was
he
such
made
a
me
great
so
story
mad.
behind him too.
Yes.
So, and same with mine. My favorite is definitely Kuja, and that's because of when I think of villains,
Nice.
I think of who has the most legitimate reason to act. And I think Final Fantasy always has villains that have great reasons to act, even Sephiroth, and then in Advent Children, Kadaj, like they usually have pretty good motivations. I really liked Kuja. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Chat is basically unanimously Kefka. And then Mandy says Malthus, of course. Miss Mandia is Miss
No.
Grandia.
Yeah.
The entirety of Ouroboros' best villains. Big Cal, absolutely. That was kind of where I was going with the second one, but you really can't talk about all of Ouroboros without having a whole bunch of spoilers. But yeah, the Trails games are good stuff. So, for sure. Okay, next one. If there was one RPG that you do not have in your collection and you could add it tomorrow, what would it be?
Ooh. Oh. I think an original copy of Chrono Trigger would be the golden gem for me to add to the collection.
That would be pretty good. That would be pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and say Kodelka. I would like to have that.
I have it.
What? I know! Give it to me! Too bad he didn't say survival horror, because he knows what I would say. You know! You know what I'll say! Like a broken record at this point.
I would say for me, and James has it, I would love to have one of those big box Earthbounds. That would be something really special. I would love to just have that right up there. All right. So those are some good ones. All right. Favorite tactical RPG?
Actually, well, man, okay, that's tough. I think for me, it's a tie between the original Final Fantasy Tactics and Ogre Battle 64.
Nice.
You know what? I'm gonna do one that most people probably won't even really think about, and I'll just show it because I feel it is so underrated. If I can get it out, it won't come out. It won't come out. Okay, I got it. Technical difficulties. Bleach, the Third Phantom. Now, this is a strategy, kind of Fire Emblem RPG, and it had unique original characters made for it that went along with the story. And it was so cool that it's like, man, I wish these characters were actually really in the anime. And it was like a one and done. And I would love to see more strategy RPG like this with anime properties. Awesome game. Rough around the edges, but still awesome. So it would be this. It was a sleeper.
And I will say,
for
there's
me.
so many, like basically every officer and every command and their lieutenant are in that. Like everybody. From
Yeah,
all of
yes,
the
you get to play
squads.
you
It's
get
so
to play
good.
so many characters. It's crazy. It's crazy.
All right,
Cool.
and again, I completely agree with James. As much as I love Fire Emblem, the original Tactics. I just happen to have my PSP bookshelf right next to me. I love the release of it on here for the extra scenes with Delita and stuff. But
Such a good game.
you can't beat it. And I also think that the sequel, or not a sequel, I mean, but the second Final Fantasy Tactics game is underrated as well. It got a lot of hate because it wasn't set in the same world and it wasn't exactly the same, but it was such an awesome game, and I love it. Like it's basically a storybook. Like it was so cool. But yeah,
Does the PSP version have the ability to recruit Cloud? Because I know in the PS1 version you could.
that I don't know. I think that like the last time I played through it, I'm pretty sure it was on PSN. But yeah, I know that this one has the additional cutscenes, that were not in the original one. So,
Yeah.
all right. What is the most time you've put into one JRPG, and which one was it?
Ooh. Hmm. And like multiple playthroughs or
Yeah,
like
just total
length of a
time. Yep.
single play? Okay, let me think about that. You know, I think it's probably got to be Final Fantasy IX. It's my favorite of the entire franchise. And I mean, it's already a long game, but I want to say I've probably replayed that one more times than any other Final Fantasy game. So it's got to be FF9 for me.
Nice. Philip?
Um, it sitting here and I'm thinking, and it's probably high between two that I know of. I remember uh, maybe Dark Cloud 2 or oh gosh, man, I don't know. Because I remember fondly playing a lot of Dark Cloud 2 and was it Rogue Galaxy on the PS2 or Rogue
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rogue
um
Galaxy.
So good.
yeah, Rogue Galaxy, and then maybe Grandia 3. Like I just remember playing those forever for whatever
Hmm.
reason on the PS2 just over and over again.
So before I answer, I do want to read some of the chat's answers. We're going back to the tacticals. Big Cal says Mario plus rabbits for the win. Those are actually really good. If people ever doubt them, those games are fun as heck. Um, and then Catherine says 1,500 hours on Chrono Trigger. That's incredible. And then Cal
That's some real
says
time.
Pokemon Silver spent hundreds of hours when it first released, and I've played through it almost once a year since. For me,
Yeah.
there would only be two contenders. It would be Final Fantasy VII. I have completed it 6 times. Probably 3 of those were everybody to 99. And my second would be the original Suikoden. Probably completed that 3 times with all 108 stars. That one's almost impossible to get everyone to 99 because the leveling system doesn't functionally work past like 70. But
Oh,
yeah,
my.
so great. Those are like my thing. But it is very impressive. Catherine has put 1,500 hours into Chrono Trigger. That is a beautiful thing.
That's
So
damn
this,
impressive.
yeah, for sure. So this one might be controversial. What do you feel is the most overrated JRPG series?
The whole series. Hmm. Ooh,
And while you're
man,
thinking on
that's
that, Catherine says Jeebus on Final Fantasy VII 6 times. They kept getting me, so I did it like 3 times. Then they put it on PSN with trophies, and then I started being a content creator. Then I wanted to stream and make videos on it, so I played it again. And then if you want to count the remake, that's another time. Like yeah, so they kept hooking me with new versions of it.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, and I could go in multiple ways here, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that Kingdom Hearts is kind of a bit overhyped now. It's the first 2 games are good, and then it just kept spiraling and spiraling and spiraling, and I don't know anymore. I feel so mixed about it that I'm just like, eh. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
I didn't even think about Kingdom Hearts, but I pretty hard agree with you on that one too. It kind of lost its magic and it got real weird and convoluted.
yeah.
But I the one I was thinking was kind of harsh, and I feel bad about it because it is a super loved series. And the first game I adore, but I kind of feel that the Trails series has gotten a little overrated. From
Ooh,
my,
I hope
I was
Brandon's
gonna
still not
say
in
that too, but I don't want to like make everybody angry at me. So I'm glad.
I know it's a hard, like it's a big hot take, and like I said, I love the first game, but I've every time I've tried to play other Trails games, I just can't stick with them. And I know there is a huge fan base, and these games are beloved. But for me personally, I've never been able to find the hype in the other ones.
Big Cal says, "Hold me back."
I knew it. I knew it.
You,
I,
So
everybody just removed their funding for the knob.
that would be terrible. For me, I think that I would go with probably. I know this might upset some people. Dragon Quest. I love some of the games, but the fact that we have, and we're starting to now, and maybe that will change it, but we have not moved many of them forward into the modern day. I think that there's a lot that we haven't got to experience, and yeah, and it's great. And you got to remember, in the like we've been eating so good for RPGs since the day we were born. That if I say you're not as good as Final Fantasy and Tales and Trails, that doesn't mean you're bad. Yeah, now Cal's after me. Hold me back again. But like I loved 11, and I loved like some of the spin-off games like Monsters and Dragon Quest Heroes. But oh, yep, now Jake's mad too. Hold me back. See, I told you. Is anyone not mad at Phil? It's just me and James. Phil went with the safe one. He's like, yeah, we'll just do Kingdom Hearts.
I played it safe. I wasn't out for blood. I know that was a safe bet. I went with safe bet.
Okay, favorite boss fight in a JRPG?
Ooh. For me, it is Gygus from Earthbound, Mother 2. It's just such a weird, trippy, scary, strange fight, and I won't spoil, but like the mechanic to get through it was so interesting, and like getting that sort of like huge reward of like these like flashback sequences. Anyways, it's the most memorable one for me.
Phil?
I'm gonna go with one. I don't even think a lot of people will say it, but Final Fantasy X, the first game, that boss fight with Sin, that epic rock metal, like death metal track was so intense. I didn't expect it. And the boss fight, but then what made it so like just heartbreaking is that you have to like sacrifice your summons. You have to kill off your summons, and it's the most gut wrenching thing to do. And it broke my heart, and it stood with me. And it was just such an intense like moment. I love that, and then 10-2 ruined the whole dang thing. But
Awesome. Mine has to be. We're gonna go back to Final Fantasy VII. Sephiroth with the multiple forms and that beautiful song playing in the background, the orchestra and the chanting and the singing, incredible. One Winged Angel, incredible. That game, so many people down Final Fantasy VII for like the dated graphics because they just weren't around. Like we're old people. Like you guys weren't around for it. That was amazing once. And you're like, oh, it looks blocky and terrible. No, everything about it's awesome, and I can play that. I can play the PS Classic version on the little mini console, blocky graphics and all. Like the remake was fun. We don't need a remake. I can just play the original one again, and that's the best boss fight ever.
Yeah,
I just have to say.
The only thing that hung up with me is I just could. Every time he cast that dang meteor spell, I had to wait 10 minutes to watch it.
I was gonna say, has there ever been a more over the top spell animation than Sephiroth Supernova? I mean,
know. I was like, we should just put him in Dragon Ball at this point.
So chat says favorite boss from Catherine, Mana Beast from Secret of Mana, and then Big Cal says basic one, but the Dragon Lord from the original Dragon Quest, where you think you've beaten him and then he transforms into an actual dragon. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
All right. So, who is the best girl? Go.
Hmm.
Oh. Oh man. I mean, I don't want to sound this generic, but Tifa for me.
I was gonna say the
Respectable.
same. Um, you know what? I'm gonna go with Colette. Was it Colette from Hell's Symphonia? Is that her name? The angel
Mm.
one, the one with the
Yep, I think so.
chakrams? Yes. I'm gonna go with her because she goes through so much in that game, and bless her little heart, she was just such a trooper, and she was so sweet. I loved her, and I love Symphonia, so I'm gonna go with Colette.
For
That's a good
me,
one.
it's got to be a tie between Renoa, who I was literally in love with as a child, and Elma, who I'm literally in love with as an adult. So,
Yeah.
those are
Oh,
mine.
okay. Can I make one amendum? Because he's talking about final. I can't believe it escaped my mind. But Beatrice, if I could make her a permanent party member in Final Fantasy IX and get rid of Steiner, I would in a heartbeat. I love her. She is so amazing
God,
and so awesome.
the love between Steiner and Beatrix is one of the most important things in the game.
Well, you know what? She can marry me instead because he's annoying and I hate his clunky armor and he makes me mad.
All right, so we have Laura, we have Celis, we have Terra, we have
Oh, yeah.
Naname. We got a lot of good ones in the chat. All right. All right, best boy.
Best boy.
I'm tied for two.
Mine's easy. I'll just say it's Claude. It automatically is Claude, so.
I'm gonna say I love my brooding vampire sleeping in a coffin, Vincent. I mean, I love him, and then I'm also gonna have to say, regardless,
That's my phone background screen.
regardless if Kingdom Hearts has been kind of weak sauce, I love Axel. Like, got it memorized. I loved him. I loved him.
I think I'm gonna have to go with my boy Locke from Final Fantasy VI.
And that is also in the chat. We have Locke and Edgar. We have Sylvando. We got some good
Hey,
ones.
Sylvando.
Alistair. Yes.
Hey.
Also, Kratos from Symphonia is really good
Chrono.
too. Love him.
Good. Tomoe from Kamisama Kiss, though he may be more like a man, but love him. All right, good stuff in the chat there. Oh my god, I just lost my notepad that I had open when I had to show off my Claude background. All right, here we go. All right. This is a really good one. Saddest scene in a JRPG. Go, James.
Oh. Oh. Uh. Hmm. Oh God, that is rough. I'm thinking of a few of them here. I think the one that affected me the most, like that I have the most sad nostalgia for, was going back again to Final Fantasy VI and Celis' story. I guess I shouldn't spoil that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
If someone hasn't played Final Fantasy VI yet, we have an
Yeah,
like
so
they can't be
Celis'
mad.
attempted suicide in that game hit me hard. And like for a pixel art game too, it's still just like the poetic, deep sadness of that scene. Oh man, yeah, just brilliant.
Brutal. Philip?
Well, I mean, it would be kind of like cheap to say, death of Aerith in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, sure.
Um, but I mean that one is one that a lot of people would say. But um, I'd also say in one that I thought was really hard hitting was Digital Devil Saga, man. Because as you go through that game, spoiler for the sequel, your party members kind of like die off, like they tragically they die, and your party gets smaller and smaller as you go on, and it's kind of sad because you were with these characters, and so
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
losing a friend.
yeah.
So for me, and this one is so underrated, and I keep saying I want to commission someone to do some art from it. It's from the first Trails in the Sky game, when Alba reveals himself to be Weissman and confronts Joshua, and then he walks away from him, and he comes across her, and in like a moment, she realizes something's terribly wrong, and her ice cream falls out of her hand. Estelle
Mm.
drops her ice cream on the ground, and I would love to have like a painting of Estelle sitting there with the ice cream falling, because she doesn't even know what's wrong yet, but she knows something terrible's happened. So you went from this girl who is feeling the magic of first love at its height to we're about to enter a very tragic time in your life, young lady, and
Yeah,
brutal.
that is brutal. Yeah, that is brutal, and that would be a cool painting to have too. I agree.
Yeah. And like it just drives me crazy because like I see all these people talking about all these sad things and no one's ever talking about that. I'm like, guys, that literally is the title shift in her life. Like
Mm.
that is so incredibly powerful. But yeah, I specialize in tragedy. I make tons of videos about tragedy, so that's my thing. Okay. So what is your favorite MMO?
Ooh, oof. That's tough too. I think probably still the classic era of WoW is probably the most fun that I had in an MMO. I was also super big into RuneScape, so that's pretty close. That's pretty close there. And I was a real big MMO player, so I have played a lot of those, but I don't think anything's quite hit on that 2004 to 2006 to 7-ish range of World of Warcraft for me. It was just too much of a new experience and like just too many memories.
Beautiful. Phil?
I'm gonna say Bejeweled because I don't like MMS. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I can't get into them. There's something missing about them. They feel so off to me. I just don't like them. I'm sorry, folks. I just don't. I'm
So,
sorry.
Oh, I
I mean,
think
there's no accounting for taste. But uh, I'm gonna go with James. Not the same game, but the same era. I was a massive fan and actually became so powerful in the game that I was basically running the economy along with like two other people, and that was Ragnarok Online.
Ooh, yeah, that's a
I
good one.
adored it. I adored it. I was like a market baron. I probably played the market more than I actually like grinded my dudes and fought like MVP bosses. So
Our own a great economy system too. Like you really could get lost in that.
yeah, yeah. No, it was crazy. Before I go to the next question, a couple of great answers from the chat. Going back to the saddest moment, Aerith killed by Sephiroth, Sprite fading in SOM, Celis in FF6, also Terra's family backstory. Miss Mandia says the Estelle moment is a powerful moment. And then Big Cal says can't wait for the Estelle moment in the remake. And then for our MMOs, we have World of Warcraft. Star Wars Galaxy is a wonderful forgotten one.
Yeah.
And Catherine says Vanilla through Lich King. And then Miss Mandia says Final Fantasy 14. That's what my wife would say too. She is like obsessed and she runs like the ultimate raids and stuff every week with like a static group. Like she's pretty crazy
I
into
liked
it.
FF14 a lot. FF14 was great, and especially after like the initial game, once you got into those like expansion packs,
Yeah.
those were some damn good Final Fantasy stories. Surprisingly good for an MMO.
Yeah, I had originally got her into that, and then she became way more into it than me, and I eventually stopped. But yeah, she's still enjoying it. They just recently had a series of fights that were in like their updates, where it's like basically like a wrestling federation where people turn into beasts, but it's actually like killing them. So you're trying to stop them from doing it. Like it's an entertainment thing for money. Um, but yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. They were all like rhythm based fights and like it was very strange, but she enjoyed the hell
That's
out of them.
cool.
So it's cool to see like new innovations in the games. All right, here's a good one. We're gonna get some great answers from the crowd on this one. I'm pretty sure. Favorite summon in Final Fantasy, and if they're in multiple games, which iteration did you like the best?
Ooh.
I'm gonna say Shiva from Final Fantasy X. She just comes out and like she walks out like a diva, and that that cloak goes off of her, all the ice goes everywhere, and she snaps her fingers and it shatters. Ugh,
Yeah.
be still my heart. Like it was. Oh my gosh, I loved it. Loved it.
I'm gonna go with the classic just because like FF4 was like the big initiator for me. So Bahamut I think is still probably my favorite overall. And if I had to say best iteration would be Bahamut Zero from FF7.
Nice.
That's good.
I would say my favorite would probably be Doom Train. I remember the
That's a
first
good
time I
one.
saw Doom Train, I was like, I have to get that. Like, it was so incredible. Some of those weird ones, like the Magus sisters, like some of those ones in like 9 and 10 and 12 were like pretty crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I loved some of those later ones. Like, because we kind of got like used to the ones that were in, 6, 7, 8, like all the basic ones. And then they started doing these crazy ones, and you're like, what is happening? This is great.
Yeah.
That reminds me, no, like it's definitely not the most popular, and it's not even close to my favorite of the series. But I will say, when you do summon in Final Fantasy 15, that was the most over the top shit I've ever seen.
I liked in 16 that it was literally people that like they like like inhabited, like it was incredible. And some of those are really good too.
Yeah, those. Oh my God, let's talk about cinematics. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. Like literal like whole battlefields of like hundreds and thousands of soldiers fighting like one or two like it's so crazy. So
Yeah,
crazy.
over the top.
And some of the fights that you have against them in 14 are really good too.
Yeah, yeah, they did those really well.
So a lot of those were fun. Phil, you got to play 14, man. You're missing out. I know you hate MMOs, but it's
If
good
I
stuff.
maybe if I just don't want to pay for it, man. But now that I could probably do it on PC because I'm not I have to pay a subscription or whatever. But I don't know. It's just hard to get into it. Maybe if I had people to play with regularly, maybe. And it's a time sink, I guess, and I have so little time.
So, real quick, looking at the chat, going back to the MMOs, Big Cal says, "Wish I could say Dragon Quest X, but they never localized it, which is a real
Oh
bummer."
yeah. There was one I always wanted to play younger. It was a Dragon Ball MMO, and I think there's a way to actually play an offline version of it,
That
or
would be
like
awesome.
Yeah.
or like some kind of like host, like somebody host it. It
They
looked
had
cool.
a Dynasty Warriors Online that I would have killed to be able to play. That was Japan only
I
as
always
well.
wanted to play the Dragon's
Ooh.
Dogma one that we never got. I was so excited for that.
Same.
And I'm so bummed that Dragon's Dogma 2 does not have online multiplayer. It's like, why? That game would have been perfect for it.
And then
Agreed.
for summons, we have Bahamut Final Fantasy VII from Catherine, and also the Class 4 summons from Golden Sun.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Golden Sun
Yes, the
summons.
summons from
Yeah.
Golden Sun were amazing. Oh my gosh.
All right, so
Oh,
this
we're
one,
good. I remember-
guys, this one's going to be huge, especially with James loving the music so much. What is your favorite song on a JRPG OST?
Oh. Oh. Okay, let me think about that because I've got a few that I really like.
Okay, I'll go. One of my favorites, Chrono Cross, Overwhelm music, Journey from a Shore to Another World, I think called. I used to just leave the towns and just sit there and listen to it forever and ever. It was so beautiful. And then for vocal track, I can't remember the name of it, but it was from A Legend of Dragon. The vocal track, I love it. Oh my gosh, that song was so beautiful. I wish I could remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful song.
Okay, I think Time Scar from Chrono Cross, if I had to pick one, it's got everything I ever wanted in a video game song.
Awesome. That's a beautiful one. So I will do my runner-up as Your Voice from Xenoblade Chronicles X. That was one of the
Oh,
best voiced songs on there, and they nailed me like twice for it on streams for copyright. So a little bittersweet there. But my all-time favorite is Eyes on Me from Final Fantasy VIII. Just magical.
yeah.
It was magical when it played in the game, and I remember the first YouTube video they had of the, I can't remember her name, the lady singing it live. Uh, I was like, oh my god, this is like the greatest thing ever. So that just made my love for Renoa deeper, and that's still a song today that I'll like sing along with it in like a falsetto whenever it comes on, because I just love it to death.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, so for songs from the chat, we have Peaceful Days and Chrono Trigger, or anything from Chrono Trigger, really, from Jake. Big Cal says The Whereabouts of Light from Trails. And then Catherine says Singing Mountain Unreleased, Shala's Theme, and Zeal's Over Music from Chrono Trigger. So it looks like we have some Chrono Trigger music fans in the chat, for sure.
That's beautiful.
It's
So good.
awesome.
All right. I'm going to ask this, too, because I know we don't just play JRPGs. What's your favorite song in a video game, period? Not just JRPGs. Or aside from JRPGs.
Ooh. I mean, if it includes them, I think it would probably be the same answer.
Let's
I mean,
say excludes.
typically, okay, exclude. Favorite song from a video game, excluding all the best songs. Let me think about that one.
Mine is easy. So I have two. Room of Angel from Silent Hill 4 and Promise from Silent Hill 2.
Oh yeah.
Anything
He took
basically
mine.
basically Akira Yamaoka anything from any Silent Hill game that has Mary Ellen McGlynn on vocals, I can't get enough. Like songs like Tender Sugar, Waiting for You, so many beautiful songs. She's one of my favorite singers. Love them.
Okay, so my favorite video game song that's not from a JRPG would be Gwyn's theme from the original Dark Souls.
Nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
I just like
Um,
it's like a final boss theme, but it's so emotional. I love that song.
I am. I think I'm gonna say. I just really love the Resident Evil save room themes. Like, they're so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Just so beautiful. Like, they're
Yeah,
just. Oh, I love them. They're so iconic.
so chill. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, Jake just said Snake Eater. I love it. There's some people who have not heard that. It literally sounds like it could be a goddamn James Bond theme. It is the most
Yeah.
incredible.
Jake.
There's times where I'll be at work with that just playing on my phone while I'm working, and everyone's just like looking at me. They're like, "What the hell are you listening to?" And then one day, one guy came up. He's like, "Are you listening to Snake Eater?" And I was like, "Yes! Thank you!"
Oh man, love those moments.
So, other chat people, we have Catherine saying, not in RPGs would be the whole OST from Ori. Big Cal says anything from the
Ooh,
Mario Galaxy soundtrack. Those are actually really
ooh,
good.
we are.
Then we had music in Abzu being really good. But yeah,
I haven't played. Yeah.
Snake Eater has got to be. That's that's so great. I love it. Thank you for saying that, Jake. Okay, we're getting down to the last couple here. I got three more. What is your favorite PS1 JRPG?
Final Fantasy 9. I mean, it's not like an easy call because I PS1 is my favorite console for RPGs. I think if I had to choose one, there's just so many good ones. But yeah, I think Final Fantasy 9 would have to be my overall. It's definitely my most played.
Philip?
I'm gonna have to say, it's a struggle, but I'm gonna have to go with Legend of Dragoon. It was the pinnacle of everything the PS1 had left, and it was one of the last JRPGs released for the platform. And man, that game, it holds up even today by today's standards. It holds up so well. I freaking adored that game. It was
Those
like
pre-rendered backgrounds.
It was like
Oof.
Power Rangers as a JRPG, or like anybody remember Mystic Knights and Tir Naga? That's
Mm.
what it was like. Like, and I loved it. I couldn't believe it. Like when you first get to become a dragoon, I was like, whoa.
So for me,
Yeah.
easily Final Fantasy VII and Suikoden 1. They are tied. And before
Yeah.
anybody in chat says Suikoden 2 is a better game in every way than Suikoden 1, but Suikoden 1 was the first. Yes, it has much better quality of life, much more dialogue from the NPCs. The world is much more filled out, but Suikoden 1 started it all, baby.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like for me, if I was gonna say Final Fantasy, it'd have to be 8 because that was my first one.
All right, so
Yep.
those are some great PS1s, and I agree. The PS1, I think that like a lot of people our age, that's when we really entered into that, like really big. You know, we might have played some Earthbound or some 5 or 6, but we really a lot of people hit that are in their late 30s, early 40s on those games on the PS1. So this is a good one. Your favorite Switch JRPG?
Hmm. Wow, that really opens it up because pretty much all of them are kind of on there. Well, no, I guess not all of them, but a lot. So, like, whoa, Nintendo Switch exclusive?
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I think, hmm, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for me would be my favorite from the Switch library.
Very good pick.
Um, I guess it was kind of an RPG or like an action one in a way. Um, Astral Chain was pretty cool, I guess. I mean,
For sure.
That's a great game.
yeah.
So, Catherine read my mind. I don't know if you guys can see in the very corner. You probably can't see it too good. But that is a poster up there of Casty in the corner from Octopath 2. Octopath 2 is probably my favorite. And then they had to go and release the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles X. So that would unseat it. I don't know if that really counts because it is a remaster technically. Um, but yeah, Octopath 2, those characters. After the first
Oh,
one, I
yeah.
didn't think someone could beat those characters. And I immediately fell in love with Cassie. She's my favorite, one of my favorite characters in RPGs ever. So, love it.
I couldn't agree more. She's such a cool character. And Octopath 2, my God, what a good game that was. Oh, it was so good.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, Octopath has a thing with like the apothecary and nurse type characters because I loved I can't remember his name right now, the apothecary from 1 that uncovered that the other apothecary girl was like poisoning people to then cure them. What the heck was his
Oh,
name?
yeah. Uh,
Oh, his story was so good.
damn,
But
I can't remember his name right
chat, what
now.
was his name? The hero apothecary that unveiled her plan where she was poisoning and then curing people. What was his name? It began with a J, I think. Alphen.
Uh,
Alphen.
yep.
Yes, Alphen. So yeah, the medical characters in the Octopath games are incredible. But yeah, Octopath for sure. All right, and the one we're gonna end it off on. If you could be any class in a JRPG in real life to fight the end times, to fight the evil, what would you be?
Mm.
I already know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna be
Ooh.
well, it's tied. I'm either going to be a summoner so I can summon all the cool stuff, like Yuna, or I'm gonna be whatever the heck Vincent was, because being able to shapeshift into monsters and demons was pretty dang cool. Okay, I don't know what you would
Yeah.
classify that class shapeshifter, but yeah.
I don't know what you would
Ooh.
actually call that after all the terrible experiments they did to him. That's not technically like a skinwalker. I don't know what the hell it would be, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
I think I would be a dragoon.
Nice,
Oh, that's a good
Estinian.
one too.
Me, absolutely a crusader. I've
Yeah.
always envisioned myself armored horseback, huge spear. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And whenever I
I could also
play
see you. I could also see you as a Dark Knight class too.
whenever
I
I
really
play like
could.
D&D or White Wolf, that's always my character, spear wielding crusader that is like an outcast and just fights wars for the church and like lives in like an abandoned church. Like that's always the character that I create.
Love it. Love that.
Like the church takes care of him just because he'll kill people for them. He's not actually holy, but he fights for the church.
Yeah. The ends justify the means.
Right? That's cool. But who is like, so James, who was your like favorite dragoon? Like, who inspired you to want to be like a dragoon?
Oh, I actually always like that class anytime it pops up. They tend to have the coolest armor, first off, but I don't know why the jump ability has always just for me been so cool for them to just like completely get out of harm's way, launch up into the atmosphere, and then come crashing down, you know? But I think favorite overall. I mean, I guess probably just for nostalgia's sake, it would be Kane from
Nice.
FF4.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. I don't
I
think
had
there's
a really
ever been
cool.
like a crappy dragoon. Like they're all really cool.
Yeah,
Probably
and
my
always have.
favorite is going to be Chad Jack Garland with the Dragoon class from Strangers of Paradise. Because the guy is such a Chad. Like, my gosh. Give him Dragoon class and he's unstoppable.
But there's so many underrated ones too. Like Freya was awesome.
Yeah.
Frickin'
Yeah,
people forget about
very
Estinian.
cool.
Like Estinian is like one of the main He becomes like one of the main characters in 14. Like he's still important to it now. Like it's so he's been in it for so long. But yeah, chat says mage for me from Big Cow. Catherine says blue mage, good choice. Mage, yeah,
Cool.
from Kitten. Magic stuff is so cool. Jake says Ryu from Breath of Fire, so I can turn into a dragon. Awesome. And then Catherine
Nice.
says, or an artificier. So
Ooh,
what a great lightning round. I definitely enjoyed doing that with you guys. It
that
looks
was fun.
like our time is about up. I want to thank everybody that came out. You guys have been an awesome chat. You've been so interactive. You have all been so supportive of James, whether it's in his Discord or here or both. James, I want to thank you, dude. You are making an incredible game, and you have the exact mindset and goals and thought process that we need everybody in the video game industry to have to save this damn thing before it's gone. So thank you so much. Your game looks incredible, and I so look forward to playing it.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Super kind, and this has just been way too much fun.
Good deal. Phil, thank you for coming on, brother. I always love doing premium content or stuff on our channels together. You're a good pal, and you're also leading that fight for the physical games as well. So, Phil, where can all these folks find you?
Going up collects on all my social medias. I got pretty much all of them. Blue Sky, Threads, Twitter, YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Come check out what I'm doing. I'm probably going to start dabbling into streaming too now that I have the good quality internet. So look out for that.
All right. And before I turn it over to James for the last word, you guys can always find me on the Premium Edition YouTube. You can also find my personal YouTube that covers JRPGs. We stream JRPGs weekly, usually rare and obscure ones, Cold Nights Gaming. And now I want to turn it over to James. James, give us a final spiel on that Kickstarter, where to find it, what you're at, and yeah, we'll have you bring us out.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to follow along with development or me, all of our socials are pretty much at Primitive Pixel Games. So if you Google that, you'll be able to find us pretty much anywhere. We've got 34 hours left on the Kickstarter campaign, so we are getting down to the wire. Currently, we're at 352,626 buccarinos. Which is just crazy. 5,240 backers, just amazing. If you want to keep up on the game or chat with me or the team or any of the cool community, you can find a link to our Discord server on the campaign page or in the bio on any of our social media, and would be happy to have you and just nerd out over JRPGs or anything that you like. So that's my spiel. Had a super fun time on the show. Appreciate you guys so much, and the whole Premium Edition family, and everybody who came and hung out and had some fun with us tonight. That was just so cool.
Great deal. So, folks, remember, if you're looking for Lonesome Village, we will be live tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a Lonesome Village stream to highlight more of the game and support that second chance sale. And I want to thank everybody again. Thank you, Phil. Thanks, James. Thanks, chat. Everyone, have a good night. Stay proudly premium. And remember, stay creepy. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.